Have you ever laid in bed at night completely exhausted, but your mind wide awake, spinning, looping, diving into conversations from years ago, worrying about things that haven't happened and maybe never will? Maybe it starts small, a random thought, a what if. Then, suddenly, you're deep inside your own head, stuck in a loop that feels impossible to break. You tell yourself to stop. You try to breathe slower. You close your eyes and hope the thoughts go away. But your chest feels heavy. Your heart races. And somewhere deep inside, this quiet voice whispers, "What's wrong with me? Let me tell you something. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. You're just human." A deeply feeling human being, caught in a very real, very common pattern. And today, I want to talk to you about one invisible habit. A habit that almost every anxious person repeats without realizing it. A habit that feels safe but slowly drains your inner peace. It's subtle. It hides in plain sight. But once you truly see it, you'll never unsee it again. And more importantly, you'll finally be able to change it. Because that's what this channel is about. Not just motivation, but transformation. Not just chasing success, but coming home to yourself with more clarity, more calm, and more confidence than ever before. So let me ask you this. Have you ever checked your phone for the third time in 5 minutes just to make sure you didn't miss something? Replayed a conversation over and over again, wondering if you said something wrong? Googled your symptoms for hours, convinced it must be something serious? Asked someone, "Are you mad at me?" even when nothing really happened? If any of that sounds familiar, you're not alone. In fact, you're part of a silent, modern epidemic. But don't worry, this isn't about blaming yourself. This isn't about judgment. This is about awareness. Because awareness is the first step toward peace. You see, anxiety doesn't usually show up as screaming panic attacks or dramatic meltdowns. It shows up in habits. Quiet, automatic habits that we build over time. Habits that feel helpful, but actually fuel our fear. Habits like overthinking, overchecking, overcontrolling. And today, we're going to shine a gentle light on one of them. Not to shame it, but to understand it. Because when we understand our patterns, we regain our power. And when we regain our power, we return to our peace. Let me be real with you. I've lived this. There was a season in my life when my anxiety ran the show. I looked calm on the outside, but inside, I was in a constant state of hypervigilance. Always on, always tense. Always scanning for something to worry about. And every time I gave in to that need to check, to control, to overprepare, I told my brain, we're not safe unless I'm in control. But control is an illusion. And the more I clung to it, the more I fed the very thing I was trying to escape. Anxiety. That's why today, I want to invite you into a new kind of conversation. One that isn't about fixing yourself, but about freeing yourself. This isn't just psychology. This is personal. This is spiritual. This is about reconnecting to the part of you that already knows how to breathe. The part that remembers how to be here. Now. Because let me ask you another question. When was the last time you truly felt present? Not just existing, but alive, aware, grounded. When was the last time you weren't waiting for the next thing to go wrong? When you didn't feel the need to double-check, triple-check, or ask for reassurance? If that feels like a distant memory, don't worry. You can come back. In fact, you're already on the way. Right now, by watching this video, you're choosing something different. You're choosing awareness over avoidance, curiosity over control, presence over panic. So let's walk this path together. In the next few minutes, we're going to explore what this one silent habit really is, why it feels so comforting but secretly drains you, how to recognize it in your daily life, and most importantly, how to gently release it, so you can reclaim your inner stillness and stop outsourcing your peace. This isn't just another self-help tip. It's a shift in how you see yourself, how you relate to your thoughts, how you meet discomfort without running from it. Because healing doesn't happen through more control. It happens through more compassion. And today you get to practice that with me, right here, right now. So take a deep breath. Seriously. Pause. Inhale through the nose. Hold it. Exhale slowly. That breath, it's yours. And it's the beginning of everything. Let's begin. Let's get honest for a second. Have you ever checked your email and then checked it again 2 minutes later? Have you ever read a text you just wrote not once, not twice, but 5 times, just to make sure it sounded okay? Or maybe you felt a small ache in your chest and, before you even blinked, you were on Google reading about 17 possible diseases. Yeah, me too. And here's the thing, it doesn't make you crazy. It doesn't mean you're weak or broken. But it does mean you're caught in a cycle. And that cycle has a name. Reassurance-seeking. It's that quiet, constant need to double-check, to be sure, to feel safe by confirming, researching, or validating again and again and again. It's subtle. It hides behind logic. It disguises itself as responsibility or being prepared. But underneath it, all it's anxiety in disguise. Let's call it out. Every time you check, every time you reread, reanalyze, or reconfirm something, you're sending a silent message to your brain. And that message is, the world is not safe unless I'm in control. And guess what? Your brain listens. Your nervous system responds. And slowly, without even realizing it, your body starts to live in a constant low-grade state of fear. Let that sink in. Every time we check, we're not solving the problem. We're reinforcing the idea that we can't trust ourselves, that we can't trust the moment, that we can't trust life unless we're holding it all together, every second of the day. Now pause and ask yourself, where in your life are you overchecking right now? Your relationships, your health, your career, your phone. Think about it. How many times a day do you reach for your phone just to make sure? Make sure someone replied. Make sure no one's upset. Make sure nothing terrible has happened in the last 10 minutes. But here's the truth. That kind of certainty doesn't exist. And chasing it only makes you more afraid. You might say, but I'm just trying to be careful. And yes, caution is healthy. Awareness is powerful. But control disguised as caution is what keeps anxiety alive. It's like trying to calm a fire by throwing paper on it. Let me tell you a quick story. A few years ago, I was working a high-pressure job. I had emails coming in non-stop, people depending on me, deadlines everywhere. And I got into this habit. Every 5 minutes, I'd refresh my inbox. Not because anything urgent was happening, but because part of me believed, if I miss something, everything will fall apart. So I kept checking, over and over. At first, I thought it was just me being responsible. But then I noticed something strange. The more I checked, the more anxious I became. Not less, more. And it clicked. I wasn't calming the anxiety. I was feeding it. Here's the paradox no one talks about. The more you chase safety through control, the more unsafe you feel. The more you try to make sure, the less sure you become. Why? Because control is a moving target. It's never satisfied. There's always one more thing to fix, one more message to send, one more headline to read. And anxiety, it loves that game. It thrives in the gap between now and what if. So how do we break free? It starts with noticing the habit. That moment when your finger reaches for your phone, pause. That urge to Google your symptoms, breathe. That desire to reread your message for the 6th time, smile at it. Say to yourself, I see you, fear, but I'm not going to feed you today. Because here's the truth. You don't need to double-check to be safe. You don't need to control every detail to be okay. And you don't need to know everything in order to live in peace. You were born with an inner compass, a quiet wisdom, a natural strength. It's still there underneath the noise, underneath the panic, waiting for you to listen. You are allowed to relax. You are allowed to trust. You are allowed to not know and still be at peace. Can I remind you of something? The most peaceful people you know, they aren't peaceful because life is perfect. They're peaceful because they've learned to be present, to stop overchecking, to stop proving and pleasing and predicting, and to simply be. So, if you're feeling anxious right now, if you're caught in that loop, know this. You're not stuck. You're not alone. You're just practicing a habit. And habits can change. It doesn't have to happen all at once. But what if today you chose to pause once? What if today you allowed yourself one less check, one more breath? That small choice. That's how transformation begins. Anxiety isn't asking you to fix everything. It's asking you to come back to yourself. So the next time that urge to just make sure shows up, pause, breathe, and remember, you are already safe. You are already enough. You don't need more control. You need more connection. Let me ask you something personal. Have you ever felt a rush of relief after checking something? Maybe you Googled a symptom. Maybe you double-checked your partner's text. Or maybe you went back to make sure the door was locked just one more time. And the moment you confirmed, that little breath of "okay, I'm safe now," that's dopamine. It's your brain's way of saying, "good job. You solved the problem. You avoided danger." But here's where it gets tricky. Because even though that momentary relief feels like comfort, it's actually reinforcing a pattern that can slowly become your prison. Let's break it down. Every time you seek reassurance, whether from a person, a screen, or a thought, your brain gives you a small reward, a hit of dopamine, the same chemical that spikes when you eat something sweet, scroll social media, or win a bet. That good feeling, it doesn't mean the problem is gone. It means the habit has just been reinforced. Let's use an example we can all relate to. Imagine you have an itch. It's annoying, uncomfortable. So, naturally you scratch it. It feels good. But then the itch comes back. Maybe even worse. And now, you've irritated the skin. You've trained your body to expect the scratch. That's what reassurance-seeking does to your mind. You're scratching an itch of uncertainty. And in doing so, you're making your anxiety spread. You're teaching your nervous system a very dangerous message. I can't feel safe unless I check. I can't relax unless I know for sure. I can't trust myself. I need someone or something to make it okay. And guess what? Your brain learns fast. Neurons that fire together, wire together. The more you repeat this pattern, the stronger that loop becomes. So now, discomfort doesn't just mean feeling a little off. It becomes a trigger, a signal that you must do something to escape it. You check, you Google, you ask for reassurance, and for a few seconds you feel calm. But the calm isn't real. It's borrowed. It's temporary. It's not peace, it's relief. And the difference matters. Because peace is stable. It comes from within. Relief is fragile. It depends on the next check, the next answer, the next hit. Let's pause here for a second. What are you dependent on to feel okay? A notification? A thumbs up? Someone replying exactly how you need them to? If you're nodding right now, that's okay. There's no shame here, only awareness. And awareness is power. You see, the danger of this habit isn't in the checking itself. It's in what it's teaching your body, your brain, and your spirit. That you can't handle uncertainty. That fear must be avoided at all costs. That safety only exists outside of you. But the truth? You were not born anxious. You were taught to fear uncertainty. You were conditioned by life, by trauma, by culture to believe that control equals safety. And so we start building our lives around that belief. We over-prepare. We overthink. We overcheck. All in the name of feeling safe. But safety built on control is not safety. It's dependence. Dependence on people saying the right thing. Dependence on your body never feeling strange. Dependence on the world acting the way you expect it to. And that, my friend, is a fragile way to live. Because life is messy. People are unpredictable. Your body will change. And the world will never hand you certainty on a silver platter. But here's the good news. You don't need it to. Because real peace, real strength comes from learning to be okay, even when things aren't perfect. Even when your inbox has unread messages. Even when your partner hasn't replied yet. Even when your body feels off. Even when you don't know what's going to happen next. That is emotional freedom. That is inner power. That is the muscle we build when we stop feeding the reassurance habit. You might be wondering, but how do I stop something that feels so automatic? The answer isn't force, it's curiosity. Next time you feel the urge to check, pause. Ask yourself, what am I afraid will happen if I don't check? Am I seeking clarity or control? Is this helping me build trust, or is it keeping me stuck? Just by asking the question, you're shifting the pattern. You're moving from reaction to reflection. You don't need to go cold turkey. This isn't about perfection. It's about building awareness, one moment at a time. Here's something else I've learned through my own healing. When we stop seeking reassurance from the outside, we start discovering our inner wisdom, our own voice, our own intuition, the kind that says, you're okay even if things are uncertain. You can feel fear and still move forward. You don't need to check because you already know. Let that voice get louder, because anxiety isn't a flaw. It's a messenger. And sometimes it's simply asking, can I trust myself? And your job is to start answering, yes, I'm learning to. So if you've been stuck in the loop, if the habit of checking is stealing your time, your peace, your energy, this is your invitation to gently break the cycle. You don't need to fix yourself. You just need to come back home. To stillness, to breath, to trust. You know, we often talk about anxiety like it's this big, dramatic thing. Panic attacks, mental breakdowns. But in reality, anxiety often slips into our lives in the smallest, quietest ways. Ways that look normal. Ways that feel like everyday life. Let me ask you something. Have you ever looked at someone and asked, "Are you mad at me?" Even though they haven't said or done anything to make you think they are. Have you ever walked out the door and then turned back to check if the stove was off? Then again, and again, even though you know you already did it? Have you ever found yourself scrolling endlessly through news articles, reading, absorbing, worrying? Not because you enjoy it, but because you feel like if you miss something you might not be ready. That is anxiety. That is reassurance-seeking. It doesn't always look like fear. Sometimes it looks like trying to be responsible, prepared, thoughtful. But deep down, it's something else. It's a quiet voice that whispers, "You're not safe yet. Keep checking." I know this voice well. I used to listen to it all the time. Let me share something real with you. There was a time in my life when I became convinced that something was wrong with my health. It started with a headache. A small, dull ache, nothing unusual. But that day, I opened my phone and typed in the symptoms. One search led to another. And before I knew it, I was reading terrifying diagnoses: brain tumors, neurological disorders, worst-case scenarios. My heart started pounding. I couldn't focus on anything else. So I searched more and more. That day, I spent almost 4 hours spiraling in research, trying to reassure myself, trying to feel safe. But the more I searched, the worse I felt. Sound familiar? You see, I didn't need more information. I didn't need one more article, one more search result, one more answer. What I needed was inner safety. But back then, I didn't know that. I thought certainty would calm me. That if I could just figure it out, everything would feel better. And maybe that's what you've been doing, too. Looking for relief in all the wrong places. Trying to outsmart anxiety by giving it exactly what it wants. But here's the twist no one talks about. The more you feed it, the hungrier it gets. That quick check that makes you feel calm for a moment. It teaches your brain one thing. You can't handle discomfort. You need to escape it. And so you build a pattern, a reflex, a habit. Every little uncertainty becomes something you need to fix. Every silence becomes a threat. Every unknown becomes a danger. You don't mean to live this way. But suddenly, your days are filled with checking, confirming, searching, rereading, overthinking. Let's slow it down. Can you see this in your own life? Maybe it's in your relationships. You find yourself texting someone just to make sure they're not upset. Not once but 5 times a week. Maybe it's at work. You keep rereading your emails, obsessing over a single sentence, wondering if you sounded off or too direct or too vague. Maybe it's with your body. Every ache or twitch sends you down a rabbit hole of self-diagnosis. You want to trust yourself, but your brain keeps saying, "What if it's something serious?" The truth is, reassurance-seeking has 100 faces. But they all come from the same root: fear of uncertainty. You're not crazy for wanting clarity. You're not weak for needing comfort. You're human. But when the search for comfort becomes compulsive, when it steals your time, your energy, your presence, that's when it turns from coping into conditioning. Because now, your peace depends on something outside of you. And that's a fragile kind of peace. So what's the way out? Awareness, compassion, a quiet, courageous decision to say, "I don't need to check right now. I can sit with this feeling and still be okay. I don't need an answer to breathe." Start there. Start by noticing the moment the urge arises. Don't judge it. Just see it. Ask yourself, what am I afraid of right now? What discomfort am I trying to escape? Is this check building trust or weakening it? Because here's the truth that changed everything for me. Anxiety doesn't come from not knowing. It comes from not trusting. And trust is something you can grow. Every time you resist the urge to check, you're planting a seed of trust in yourself, in your strength, in your ability to face uncertainty without falling apart. And those seeds, over time they bloom into peace. Not the peace of perfection, but the peace of presence. So the next time you feel the urge to ask, to check, to Google, to overanalyze, just pause, put a hand on your heart, take a breath, and remind yourself, I am safe now. I don't need more information. I need to return to myself. That's where freedom lives. Let me ask you a question. What's the real cost of your anxiety? Not just the stress, not just the tension in your shoulders or the racing thoughts before bed, but the actual cost? The truth is anxiety takes more from us than we realize. It steals something deeper, something far more valuable than sleep or peace. It steals your trust. And not just trust in the world. It steals your trust in yourself. Let's go deeper. When you constantly search for reassurance from your phone, from others, from endless information, you're sending yourself a message. You're saying, I can't be trusted to handle this. I can't rely on my own judgment. I need someone or something else to make this okay. And at first, that seems harmless. You're just being careful, right? But over time it adds up. You start second-guessing every decision. You overanalyze every feeling. You question your worth, your choices, your future. You begin to hand over your power, one tiny decision at a time. And before you know it, you've built a life where every answer lives outside of you, where peace is conditional, where confidence is always borrowed, never owned. Think about this. How much time have you lost rechecking, rereading, repeating conversations in your head? How many joyful moments have you missed too distracted by worrying to even be present? How many times have you silenced your intuition because it didn't sound certain enough? This is the real cost. Anxiety doesn't just make you feel uncomfortable. It makes you forget who you are. You forget that you've survived hard things. You forget that you've made good decisions. You forget that you've already carried yourself through every dark night before this one. And now, you're afraid of trusting the very person who's gotten you this far. Let's take a breath here. Because this part of the conversation is raw. It's personal. It's the kind of truth most people don't say out loud. But we need to. Because until we see the cost of this habit, we'll keep paying it. We'll keep living small. We'll keep doubting ourselves. We'll keep outsourcing our peace to people, systems, routines, and screens that can never truly give it. You don't deserve that kind of life. You deserve a life where you can make a decision and stand by it. Where you can feel something joy, sadness, fear, and not immediately run to fix or question it. Where you can rest in the knowing that whatever comes you can handle it. That's real power. And that power comes from within, not from knowing everything, but from knowing yourself. You see, the problem with constant reassurance-seeking is that it conditions your mind to believe peace only exists after certainty. But life doesn't work that way. Life is uncertain. People will change. Plans will fall apart. Your body will have good days and weird days. And sometimes, things just won't make sense. But you can still choose calm. Not because the world guarantees your safety, but because you do. And that's where we flip the script. Because instead of asking, how do I make sure everything goes right? You start asking, how do I build trust in myself, no matter what happens? That question, that's where your freedom begins. Let me share something personal. I used to doubt myself all the time. Every choice I made, I'd go over it a dozen times. Even simple things, sending a message, making plans, setting boundaries. I'd worrying, what if it's wrong? What if I upset someone? What if I miss something? But one day, I realized, the more I looked for reassurance, the more anxious I became. Not less, more. And that's when it hit me. I wasn't building confidence. I was building dependence. Dependence on feedback. Dependence on control. Dependence on certainty. So I started doing the opposite. I started choosing trust on purpose. Was it easy? No. But it was liberating. I started asking myself, what would I do if I trusted myself right now? How would I respond if I believed I could handle whatever happens next? And slowly, the answers came from within. That's when you start reclaiming your time, your energy, your joy. Because when you stop waiting for reassurance, you start living. So here's my invitation for you today. Next time you feel the urge to check again, to ask again, to search for one more sign that you're okay, pause, take a breath, and say to yourself, I choose trust over control. I am not fragile. I am not lost. I am learning. And that is enough. You won't get it perfect, but you'll get stronger, more grounded, more whole. Because healing isn't about never feeling anxious. It's about no longer letting that anxiety define you. And you, my friend, are far more powerful than your fear. Let's start with something that's hard to admit. You can't control everything. And I know that's not the kind of sentence we like hearing, especially when the world feels chaotic, when people let us down, when our bodies feel unpredictable, when life throws curveballs we didn't see coming. We crave certainty. We crave answers. We crave that feeling of, if I just do everything right, maybe nothing will go wrong. Sound familiar? But here's the truth. Control is an illusion. And the more we chase it, the more anxious we feel. Because deep down, we already know. Life isn't built on guarantees. It's built on change. And if we try to fight that change, we suffer. But what if I told you this isn't bad news? What if giving up control isn't defeat, but freedom? Here's what I've learned: sometimes the most powerful thing you can say to yourself is this: I don't have to fix everything. I don't have to predict every outcome. I don't have to control every detail. I just have to control how I respond. That's it. That's where your power lives. Not in the outcomes, but in the inner space between stimulus and response. Viktor Frankl, Holocaust survivor and author of Man's Search for Meaning, said it best. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. So let me ask you, what happens when something doesn't go as planned? Do you spiral? Do you panic? Do you check your phone, your email, your heart rate? Do you try to control your way out of discomfort? That was me for years. If I didn't get a reply to a message, I'd assume the worst. If my schedule shifted, I'd rearrange everything obsessively. If I felt even the smallest twinge in my body, I'd fall down the Google rabbit hole of fear. I thought I was being proactive, but I was just anxious. I was just trying to outrun uncertainty like it was something to be afraid of. But here's what anxiety doesn't want you to realize. You don't have to react to everything you feel. You can pause. You can observe. You can sit with discomfort without running from it. And that, my friend, is where your transformation begins. Let's take a simple but powerful example. Imagine you're feeling anxious. Your mind says, check your phone. Reread that message. Make sure everything's okay. But instead of obeying the urge, you pause. You take a breath. And you say something radical. I don't need to check. I don't need to know right now. I can sit with this feeling, and I'm still safe. In that moment, you're not controlling the world. You're not changing your circumstances. But you are doing something far more powerful. You're choosing who you want to be in that moment. That's the control you do have. You can't control whether people respond the way you hope. You can't control how the world shifts. You can't control your thoughts from arising, because they will. Thoughts are like waves. You can't stop them from coming. But you can choose which ones you ride. This is where inner peace is built, not in having the answers, but in knowing you'll be okay even without them. Let me ask you this. When was the last time you sat with a hard emotion without running, distracting, fixing? When was the last time you let go of needing the outcome to feel safe? What would it feel like to be okay even if things are unresolved? I'm not saying it's easy, but it's real, it's freeing, and it's possible. Here's a small practice I use, and maybe you'll try it too. The next time you feel anxious, don't try to fix it. Just say, this is a wave. I don't need to ride it. I can breathe through it. Place your hand on your heart. Close your eyes. Feel your feet on the ground. And say, right here, right now, I am safe. Because even if your mind doesn't believe it, your body can. That's how we start to shift. Not by controlling the world, but by reclaiming our relationship with it. You may not get to choose what happens, but you get to choose how you meet it. With panic or with presence. With control or with courage. With fear or with trust. And the more you choose trust, the quieter anxiety becomes. Because anxiety has no power where trust lives. So the next time you feel the urge to check again, to seek reassurance, to control what's outside of you, remember this: you already have everything you need. You don't need to control the moment. You just need to be in it. With your breath, with your strength, with your quiet, unwavering presence. That's where real power begins. And it's already inside you. If you've ever thought, maybe I'm just wired this way. Maybe my anxiety is permanent. Maybe I'll always live like this. I want to gently stop you right there. Because there's something you need to hear. And it comes not just from me, but from science. Let me introduce you to someone. Dr. Judson Brewer, a renowned neuroscientist and psychiatrist at Brown University. His research has changed the way we understand anxiety. And what he's discovered is powerful. Ready for it? Anxiety, he says, is not who you are, it's a habit you've learned. And the best part? Like any habit, it can be unlearned. Take a moment and let that sink in. Anxiety is a habit, a pattern, a loop, a survival response that's been reinforced over time. But just like biting your nails, or reaching for sugar, or checking your phone, it can be rewired. Your brain can be retrained. And it starts with two tools Dr. Brewer emphasizes again and again: mindfulness, curiosity. Let's talk about the first one, mindfulness. Now I know, that word gets thrown around a lot. But what does it really mean? It means being present, being awake inside your own body, noticing your thoughts without jumping into them, noticing your emotions without judging them, and above all creating space between stimulus and reaction. So let me ask you, when was the last time you just paused? Not to fix anything, not to distract yourself, but to simply observe what's happening within you. That's mindfulness. That's where healing begins. Now the second piece, curiosity. This one is powerful and often overlooked, because most of us meet our anxiety with fear. We tense up, we resist, we run. But what if, instead of fear, you met it with curiosity? Imagine this. You feel a familiar wave of panic rising in your chest. That old urge to check, to overthink, to control everything. But instead of reacting automatically, you pause. And you ask, that's interesting. What's this feeling trying to tell me? Where is it showing up in my body? What if I didn't push it away this time? Just like that, you interrupt the pattern. You shift from victim of emotion to observer of emotion. From reacting to reflecting. And in that shift, you take your power back. Here's what Dr. Brewer's research shows. When people practice this combination, awareness plus curiosity, their brain's fear-based centers literally begin to quiet down. The neural pathways that feed anxiety weaken, and new ones rooted in clarity, calm, and confidence begin to form. In other words, you are literally retraining your brain. One breath, one pause, one choice at a time. But here's the truth that most people miss. This isn't a one-time fix. This is a practice. And practice takes time. Not everything will change in a day or even a week. But that doesn't mean nothing's working. Think of it like a path in a forest. The more you walk it, the clearer it becomes. And every time you pause instead of panic, breathe instead of react, feel instead of flee, you're walking that new path. So if your brain still wants to go back to the old trail, the one paved with worrying, fear, checking, that's okay. That's just habit. That's just programming. But now, you're writing new code. Let me share a quick moment from my own life. There was a time when I couldn't go a single day without Googling something health-related. A twitch in my leg, a pressure in my chest, a mild headache, and my brain would say, "You need to be sure. You need to be safe." But deep down, I wasn't looking for information. I was looking for relief, for someone or something to tell me, "You're okay." But here's what no search engine could give me. The voice inside that says, "Even if this feeling stays, I'm still safe." And I found that voice through mindfulness, through breathing, through sitting with discomfort and realizing it couldn't destroy me. That's when the game changed. That's when I started living with anxiety, not for it. And I want the same for you. So here's the gentle invitation. Next time you feel the urge to control, pause. When a thought feels too big, breathe. When fear shows up, get curious. Ask, what am I afraid of right now? Where did I learn this pattern? What if I don't need to fix this, just feel it? You'll be amazed how often your body already has the answer. If you give it space to speak. You are not broken. You are not weak. You're just carrying a pattern, and now you're learning how to release it. And that's what healing looks like. Not perfection, not constant calm, but awareness, compassion, and the choice to show up just as you are. So take a deep breath with me. Right now. Inhale. Exhale. You just interrupted the loop. That's how it starts. That's how it shifts. That's how your brain begins to believe you again. If you've made it this far in the video, first of all, thank you. Thank you for staying with your heart open. Thank you for choosing awareness over avoidance. And thank you for showing up for yourself. So now the big question becomes, how do I stop the loop? How do I break free from the constant checking, the second guessing, the spiral of anxiety that keeps pulling me in? The answer is simpler than you might expect. Because sometimes the most powerful changes don't come from doing more. They come from doing less with more intention. So today, I want to offer you a few simple but deeply transformative tools. Think of these as quiet doorways out of the noise and back into yourself. And no, you don't need a guru. You don't need expensive equipment. You don't even need to have everything figured out. All you need is the willingness to pause, to breathe, to begin. Let's walk through a few together. 1. When you feel the urge to check, pause, and breathe. Sounds basic, right? But how often do we actually do it? The moment your brain says, you need to make sure, you should double check. What if something's wrong? That's your cue. Instead of obeying the thought, interrupt the loop. Take one deep breath. In through the nose. Hold it. Out through the mouth. And then say to yourself gently but firmly, I don't need to act on this feeling. I can sit with it. Breathing is your first tool, because it reminds your body that you're in control now, not your fear. 2. Speak a mantra of trust out loud or in your heart. Words are not just thoughts. They're anchors. So when anxiety starts whispering lies, you counter it with truth. Try this. I can make it through this moment without needing to know everything. I don't need certainty to feel peace. Discomfort is not danger. It's just a wave, and it will pass. Repeat it slowly. Feel the words in your chest. Let them become your new rhythm. Because over time, those mantras, they replace the mental loops of fear with loops of faith. 3. Journal the moment. Track the trigger. Here's something powerful you can do. When anxiety shows up, instead of spiraling, start writing. Open a journal. Grab your phone's notes app. And just ask, what was I doing right before this feeling came? What triggered it? What am I afraid of underneath this urge? You don't need to write a novel. Just a few honest lines. The goal here isn't perfection, it's pattern recognition. Because when you begin to notice what sets you off, you begin to reclaim your power to respond differently. 4. Create 2-minute rituals of presence. You don't need 30-minute meditations. You don't need to sit on a mountaintop. Start smaller. Start with 2 minutes. Literally set a timer. Sit in silence. Take a mindful walk around the block. Look out the window and observe the sky. Breathe with a plant or light a candle. No phone. No input. Just you and the moment. And if your mind wanders, that's okay. Gently bring it back over and over again. 2 minutes of stillness can do more for your nervous system than an hour of scrolling. Because stillness is where clarity lives. Stillness is where you return. Bonus, create a calm corner in your space. This one is practical. Designate one small spot in your home. A chair, a corner, even a floor cushion. A place you go not to escape, but to reconnect. Keep a journal nearby. Maybe a blanket, a candle, or some calming music. And whenever you feel the storm rising, go there. Not to solve the storm, but to remind yourself that peace is always available. Not outside of you, but within. Now let me say this clearly. None of these tools will magically erase anxiety, but they will teach you something far more valuable. That you can coexist with uncertainty. That you are not your thoughts. That even in fear you can be calm. You don't need to be perfect to be at peace. You just need to practice presence again and again and again. You'll be amazed what happens when you stop fighting the feeling and start feeling through it. Because the truth is, you don't need to know everything to be okay. You don't need to control everything to feel safe. You just need to trust that this moment, even this, is survivable. And it is. So the next time you feel yourself slipping into that loop, the next time you catch your finger hovering over your phone, the next time your heart starts racing for no clear reason, pause and say, "This is the moment I choose differently." That's it. That's the power. That's the beginning. And the more you practice these tools, the more natural they become. Until one day, you realize the loop doesn't pull you in like it used to. That's when you'll know. You've taught your brain something new. You've reminded your body of its safety. And you've come home to yourself. What if we've been looking at anxiety all wrong? I mean it. What if anxiety isn't something we need to fight, fix, or get rid of? What if it's not a flaw in the system, but part of the design? Let me ask you something. When anxiety shows up for you, what's your first instinct? Do you resist it? Try to calm it down? Tell yourself to stop overthinking? Distract, scroll, overwork, overeat just to not feel it? Yeah, me too. For years, I treated anxiety like an enemy, a threat, a sign that something was wrong with me. But then I heard something that changed everything. Anxiety is not the enemy. It's the messenger. And when I stopped trying to kill the messenger and started listening to the message, everything shifted. Let me offer you a new perspective. What if anxiety isn't here to hurt you, but to wake you up? What if it's not saying you're in danger, but rather, pay attention, slow down, come back to yourself? Because here's the thing no one tells you. Anxiety doesn't always mean something's wrong. It often means something's misaligned. Maybe your boundaries have been pushed for too long. Maybe you've been ignoring your needs. Maybe you've been living from the outside and trying to please everyone but yourself. Maybe your body knows it's time to rest and you've been powering through instead. Anxiety has many disguises, but at its root, it's a signal, a whisper, sometimes a scream, saying, "You're out of sync with what your soul needs." Now, this doesn't mean anxiety is fun or easy. It can be incredibly uncomfortable. It can make your heart race, your chest tighten, your thoughts swirl like a storm. But discomfort doesn't mean danger. It might just mean you're growing. You're being stretched. You're being called inward not to collapse, but to transform. Here's a personal story I've never shared publicly. There was a time in my life when I was achieving everything I thought I wanted. On paper, things looked great. Success, productivity, momentum. But inside I was crumbling. I felt anxious all the time. Not because of failure, but because I had disconnected from what really mattered. I was moving too fast, saying yes too much, ignoring the small inner voice that was begging me to pause. And then one day, in the middle of a workday, I had a panic attack. Out of nowhere. Or so I thought. But looking back, the signs were always there. I just wasn't listening. That panic, it wasn't punishment. It was a wake-up call. It was my body saying, "Hey, we can't keep going like this." And for the first time, I didn't try to push it away. I got curious. I slowed down. I asked my anxiety, "What do you need me to hear?" And it whispered, "Rest, realignment, presence." From that moment on, I stopped treating my anxiety like a villain and started treating it like a teacher. So what would happen if you started doing the same? What if, instead of fearing your anxiety, you thanked it? I know that sounds strange, but think about it. Anxiety only shows up when something matters to you. You don't get anxious about things that don't touch your heart. You get anxious because you care, because something deep inside is trying to speak. So next time anxiety visits you, instead of pushing it away, ask, "What part of me is feeling unsafe right now? What am I trying to control, and what can I release? What truth have I been avoiding?" You may be surprised at the answers. Because here's the paradox. The more we run from anxiety, the louder it becomes. But the moment we turn toward it with compassion, its grip begins to loosen. Anxiety doesn't need you to defeat it. It needs you to acknowledge it, to hold space for it, to see it not as a threat, but as an invitation. An invitation to slow down, to breathe deeper, to come back to what's real. And what's real is this moment, this breath, this body, this beautiful, imperfect, ever-evolving human experience. You are not broken because you feel anxious. You are alive. You are sensitive. You are tuned in. And sometimes the volume just gets too loud. But now you know. You don't have to fight the noise. You can listen to what's underneath it. And maybe, just maybe, that anxiety, it's not here to destroy you. It's here to lead you home. If you remember just one thing from this entire video, let it be this. Anxiety doesn't start with fear. It starts with habit. A habit of checking, of overthinking, of running from the unknown, instead of breathing through it. And among all those habits, there's one that's especially sneaky. The one that feels the most reasonable, the most responsible, the most normal. That habit, checking everything over and over. Your phone, your body, your inbox, your relationships, your thoughts. Because deep down, anxiety tells us, you're not safe unless you're in control. But control is not safety. Control is a trap. Here's the truth no one talks about. You don't have to live this way. You don't have to stay stuck in that loop. Because you have something far more powerful than control. You have choice. You can choose to stop. You can choose to breathe instead of panic. To pause instead of react. To turn inward instead of chasing answers out there. And that's where peace begins. Not when everything is figured out. Not when life is perfect. But when you choose presence over panic. Awareness over autopilot. Self-trust over fear. I've done it. Not overnight. Not without setbacks. But breath by breath, moment by moment, I learned to trust again. And so have thousands of others. People just like you. People who used to check 10 times a day. People who used to Google every sensation. People who thought they'd always live in fear. Until one day, they didn't. So the real question is, what about you? Can you give yourself permission to choose differently? You're not weak. You're not broken. You're not too much. You're becoming. You're learning how to face your own thoughts without running. You're building the strength to feel discomfort without needing to fix it immediately. You're learning that the most powerful response isn't doing more, it's simply being here. So the next time that urge shows up, the next time you feel yourself wanting to check again, refresh again, reassure yourself again, pause, breathe, and smile even just a little. Not because the fear is gone, but because you see it now. You see it for what it is. A habit, not your truth. A pattern, not your identity. And in that moment, you get to choose a different path. You get to say, I am not my anxiety. I am not my fear. I am the awareness behind it all. And from that space, you begin to heal. Not because you've figured everything out, but because you've learned to be still in the unknown. That's where peace lives. Not in knowing everything, but in knowing yourself. And my friend, right now in this moment, you are not lacking. You are not incomplete. You are already enough. You are whole. You are capable. You are becoming more grounded, more powerful, and more present with every breath. So go forward today with softness, with compassion, with curiosity, and with the unshakable reminder that your peace is not out there. It's already within you, waiting to be remembered. If you take away just one message from this entire video, let it be this. Anxiety doesn't begin with fear. It begins with habit. And among those habits, the most deceptive, the one we almost never question, is the habit of checking everything. We check because we want to feel safe. We check because we want to be sure. We check because we're trying to outrun the unknown. But here's the catch. The more we check, the less we trust. And the more we feed the cycle we're trying to escape. Let me say something you might need to hear today. You don't have to keep living in that loop. Because you have something anxiety never talks about. Something it quietly hopes you'll forget. You have choice. You get to choose how you respond. You get to choose how you meet the moment. You can choose to pause, to breathe instead of panic, to return to presence instead of fear, to say, I see this urge to check. I know it's familiar. But today, I choose something different. That single moment. That breath. That pause. It's small on the outside, but massive on the inside. That's the moment your healing begins. And I say that from experience, because I've been there. I've lived inside the loop, checking, worrying, overanalyzing. And for a long time, I believed I couldn't stop. But then, little by little, I started choosing stillness. One breath, one pause, one act of self-trust at a time. And guess what? It worked. Not perfectly, not overnight, but over time, my brain and my body learned a new way to live. And if I can do that, and so many others have done that, then so can you. You are not weak for having anxiety. You are not behind for still struggling. You are not broken because you don't have all the answers. You are becoming. You are learning. You are growing into a wiser, more grounded, more resilient version of yourself. So the next time the urge comes to check your phone, to double read that message, to search for one more piece of reassurance, pause, just for a second. Take a slow, steady breath. Put your hand over your heart and gently say, "This is just a habit. I don't have to feed it. I am safe in this moment even without knowing everything." Smile even if just a little, because that smile isn't saying I'm not anxious. It's saying, I see it, I name it, and I choose something better. And that's real power, because peace doesn't come from controlling everything. It doesn't come from knowing all the answers. It doesn't come from fixing every feeling. Peace comes from self-trust, from presence, from knowing that whatever happens next, you can handle it. Not because life is perfect, but because you are enough to meet it, right now, as you are. Not once you've done more, healed more, proved more. Now. So take that truth with you. Carry it like a quiet anchor. Repeat it when the fear gets loud. I don't need to check. I don't need to know everything. I just need to come back to myself. Because you, right here, right now, are already enough. If today's message touched something inside you, even just a little, then before you scroll away to the next thing, take a moment, just pause and breathe, and ask yourself, what habits might I be carrying that are secretly feeding my anxiety? Maybe it's the habit of constantly checking. Maybe it's the way you second-guess yourself, or the way you push through exhaustion, or how you keep trying to fix things that were never yours to fix. Whatever it is, you don't need to figure it all out right now. You just need to notice. That awareness alone is already powerful. So here's what I'd love. Drop a comment below. Tell me, what habit are you ready to release so you can come back to peace? I read every word, and you never know. Your story might help someone else realize they're not alone either. And if you found this video helpful, if it gave you even one breath of clarity, then please take a second to like it. Share it with someone who might need this reminder today. And most of all, subscribe, because this channel, Daily Motivation Secrets, isn't just about motivation, it's about transformation. It's about coming home to who you really are. One moment, one message, one breath at a time. I'm your name, and I'm honored to walk this path with you, because every single day, we get a little closer to the person we were always meant to be. Until next time, be still, be kind, and most of all, be here.